Kickoff!
Hey, babes!
Kickoff Thursday is here. Recording this on a Thursday. Maybe you already know what happened in the Cowboys-Bucks game by the time you're listening to this. It is upon us.
Woo! Woo, 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 woo!
You were right about something. I said I didn't think the 2-week break between end of the preseason and the beginning of the regular season would feel that long. You said you did, and you were right. It felt like a long time. It felt like a long wait since the last preseason game.
It lagged. It really did, because if you think about it, this Thursday night game usually has, we're recording this before, has a week buffer. Every team in the league plays on Thursday, and then you make the big cuts. Kind of a weird spot for those two teams, because they're already kind of like, they go right into mode, right?
He just froze. The hell? I have to edit this out of the audio. Hold on. Let me make a note. I would just talk, but I got to edit this out. 117. Well, we'll see if we get Middlecoff back. This gives me a chance to tell everybody that coming up tonight at 8, this won't happen. Coming up tonight at 8 Pacific, the premiere of our conversation with Joe Staley, you can watch on the YouTube channel. I'm going to hang up on Middlecoff there and call him back. But you can check that out on the YouTube channel tonight. Also, don't forget about the mailbag. There will not be a mailbag this week. Just a little announcement there. There will not be a mailbag this week. But get your name in the mailbag, and we'll get back to that next week. Tell us your favorite bar to hang out at. Leave us a review. Put a question in that review. You want to go back to the point you were making?
Can you see me?
I got you.
We froze on the program that we were having issues with earlier today.
Yeah, but in a different way. So I don't. You look good right now. I don't know what the fuck.
That's weird. Yeah, technology, man. Sometimes I want to take this device that once famously, I don't know if he actually did much, but Steve Jobs and his vision created, and it's fantastic. I've loved it. You were an Apple guy well before me, and ever since I've got it, I loved it. It's been acting a little funny. Maybe they're trying to get me to get a new one.
Yeah.
It's that time. I've had this now probably 4 or 5 years. They wanted me to update.
Do you think it's almost time for me to replace the iPhone 8?
Yeah, well, I'd push back on that, because I have the newer one, but it's, what do I use it
better
for? I
camera,
use it to text and call. Yeah, but
better stuff.
Like,
I don't know.
If you get a deal, get a deal.
Okay.
I last year bought it. I paid $1,200 for that just because I needed some write-offs. Like, yeah, I'll just take the whole thing. I'll pay up front.
The big one?
Whenever the new one came out.
The Max.
It was Corona.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I mentioned it, John, but Joe Staley, if you're listening to this Thursday or watching this Thursday, Joe Staley premieres tonight on our channel on YouTube at 8 p.m. If you are listening to this podcast, you're going to hear Joe Staley in this podcast. So that's the way it's going to work for this week. Joe Staley coming up a little later in the podcast today. Before we get to all of the stuff we want to talk about, because it's a big week and we got big picks, let's tell you that this show is sponsored by Tito's Handmade Vodka. I still can't believe it, John. I still can't believe it that we got Tito's on the show. But it's here. Tito's is here for football season with Ham. And now we're really kicking it off. So have a great weekend with football and with Tito's.
We've now been talking about them for a month. I guess they officially came on that first month, August. But it really crystallizes. This is pretty sweet. We got the #1 vodka in America that is very similar to this podcast. Just a guy with a vision and a dream and a will, and just refused to stop. And not everyone along the way said,
refuse to lose.
My bumping 22s. Not everyone believed. We were thrown to the curb. He was thrown to the curb. But ultimately, the dust settled. Now, we don't claim to be, that we're not quite the #1 vodka in America. But he saw in us. Well, really, some of his guys did in California, mainly Devin. And they believed, and now they're a part of, I'd say, the #1 podcast. Definitely independent podcast out west. There's nothing doing, not to boast too much, but we're just proud to have them. Yeah. We really are for the football season. And they represent a lot of our core values, right? Just try to do right by people, to have a good product, and, independently owned.
And also built built a reputation, Tito's has, on a quality product, right? The label is not it's not fancy, but it actually is it's got a good mix of like classy, but not too fancy. It works in any environment, in any circumstance. Nice party, beautiful wedding, or just hanging out with, Saturday, just hanging at somebody's house. Tito's works in every situation. Don't forget about the Tito's Kickoff, John, the special drink you can make, right? We'll be making those. Send us your photos of whatever Tito's beverage you make, whatever you want it to be. But you can go with the Tito's Kickoff, the special recipe for the week, because, it's Kickoff. This is me scrolling as I look for, here it is. The Tito's Kickoff, John, it's very simple. It is Tito's. It is OJ. 2 ounces of OJ, 2 ounces of soda water, maybe slice a little orange on top of that.
Oh.
And bam!
Now we're cooking with gas, baby.
That's going to work not only Sunday, it's going to work Saturday when Oregon and Ohio State play at 9 a.m.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's do it, baby. Tito's, American-made. This is an American-made podcast. If you're listening to this, well, we got international listeners, but I'm sure many of you guys are also American-made, so we're just all in this together. Tito's.
Tito's, distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas, 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly. And please savor responsibly. And please also DM us, tag us, whatever, photos of you hanging out.
Yeah, that's key. Everything this weekend, Saturday, Sunday, watching football with alcohol, with cocktails. Link us in those. Link us in your picks.
Speaking of picks, John, different kind of picks with a K. MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM, and the number 1. MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM, and the number 1. Right now, they will match that first deposit dollar for dollar up to $1,000. If you accept that bonus, you have to bet the full amount before you can withdraw funds. You can also decline the bonus, but either way, use HAM1. Let them know that we sent you. What better time to get it started than this weekend?
Yep, mybookie.ag, promo code HAM1. We have the full college football slate. Oregon, Ohio State, 14.5, the latest that I saw. So that's an intriguing number. Obviously, the NFL slate, full go. We are going to make our official lock of the week and our official dud of the week. We did lock of the week last year. We're going to add, after going back and forth about how shitty certain games were, we are going to, as long as we can keep this, we're going to put $300 on the lock of the week. We're going to put $100 on the dud of the week. And as long as we can keep going, we're going to keep gambling that cash and hopefully just keep winning. Lock, we feel pretty good about. We actually got off to a really good start. The dud is going to be fascinating.
Yeah, last year, how long did we go before we ran out of
We
cash?
definitely went 4-0, and then we got bored.
Yeah, we got bored. We started doing parlays and doing some crazy stuff. I don't know if anyone has ever, I'm not aware of anybody doing a dud of the week in the history of pick making, right? You can find picks on every podcast, in every newspaper, on every radio show, on every TV show. Everybody's doing picks. But is anybody finding the worst game of the week and picking that and betting on that game?
Yeah, we're putting our money. We're not just... One thing I think is going to happen a lot in the media streets is a lot of people are going to talk about gambling. 99% of them will never, ever put their own money. And listen, like everyone has a different amount of money, whether it's $10, whether it's your Portnoy.
How many units, John? How many units?
Yeah, have you ever put money on a game? Because if you don't, I don't want to talk to you. Or I don't want you to talk to me about gambling. If you've never just lost $10, you know that feeling. I remember last year, when Corona came, the sports came back, and you started gambling on EPL? You're like, this is crazy.
I was doing good, too. I was betting unders. Nobody was scoring when the sport came back.
I know. So it's like we're putting our cold, hard cash on the lock of the week. I think it's really, we've been talking about it for a while now. There aren't that many huge discrepancy games. It's not like Tampa this week is playing Jacksonville, and the Texans are playing the Rams. The only true game like that is kind of the Niner game, right? There's not that many playoff teams playing crappy teams. There are crappy teams playing crappy teams, and then it feels like there are several playoff level matchups. There's not much of what we were looking for. We didn't have much to choose. Remember last year, there would be several weeks where there were like 2 or 3 games we'd pick from. I feel this week there was really only one option that you felt kind of cocky about.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. We'll go through some other games here, too. By the way, Michael on YouTube says the Tito Parlay. Lock and dud of the week. LFG.
I like that.
That's bold. Okay.
MyBookie.ag, promo code M1.
So here we go. Let's talk about the lock of the week, the dud of the week, and then some other games that we like. The lock of the week, we've been talking about this for a while. We have a hard time finding another option outside of the 49ers covering against the Lions. as of this moment on Thursday afternoon, see, this is where you wait. Now the line is 8. We started talking about this game. Was it 6.5 when we started talking about it?
Is there a big difference, though, between 7.5 and 8?
I mean, the difference becomes probably when you get to like 9, 9.5, 10. 6.5, 7.
Yeah, to me, there's a big difference
2.5,
between
3.
6.5 and 7.5. Like, that's a big swing. Is the thing with the halves, right? Once you get over the touchdown, a lot of it's backdoor covers type stuff. Do you see Jared Goff slicing and dicing people in the fourth quarter if they're down 25 and like getting a couple touchdowns and making that a 8-point game? Like, that's what I just don't envision happen. That's why I feel good about this team. It happened last year with the Giants and it happened with the Jets. They can't score. I'm betting against this team, as I don't think, regardless of their opponent, they're going to struggle to score, and then I think they're playing a good defense.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Niners, for all of the unknowns that happened week 1, especially in Detroit where you've got a new coaching staff, we know that the Niners are very successful against Jared Goff. We've been talking about this for a while. It is, what did I call it last year or 2 years ago? Gimme, basically. It's an automatic when this Niners defense plays Jared Goff. It's just he is, like most teams, you struggle against more mobile quarterbacks that can create outside of the pocket. That's not his game. The team around him is not as talented as it was with the Rams, and they had success against him in the Rams too.
Voted team captain in Detroit,
again,
Motor City.
Look, John,
I'm trying
who wasn't voted a team captain? Tua.
Yeah.
Mac Jones, rookie. But
Trey Lance,
Jimmy Garoppolo was. Yeah. There's just not a lot here. Now, DeMeco Ryans' first game as a defensive coordinator. Jimmy Garoppolo, we know at times just can turn the ball over, but
DeMeco's been on staff the whole time. They've been kicking his ass, right?
Yep. You got guys back. We don't know defensively. Is Josh Norman starting at corner this week? Like, what is that going to look like?
Luckily, Calvin Johnson ain't walking through that door, right? Like, that's part of my thing. If they had Marvin Jones, if they had Golden Tate, they had Calvin Johnson, be like, this is kind of a weird matchup. Remember when the Niners played them the game before Jimmy tore his ACL against the Chiefs? And they almost lost, and Jimmy threw that pick six. That Stafford team, though, they just had weapons. That was a scary, kind of shittier team. That, to me, this does not reflect that. I also think this. Now, week 1 isn't a great barometer for this, but big picture, they are trying to reset, right? They are trying, in a football way, to do kind of a hinky. They just did it with Stafford, right? That was their blow-up. Now, where it doesn't quite feel like hinky is they got back Goff. But I bet they would justify it. We did it. We had money. Like, it's not baseball where it's like we have to spend no matter what. We got the 2 first-round picks. We need someone to play quarterback, and we weren't going to use one of at least our high pick on a rookie quarterback. And we're not going to – you can't make like a third-rounder. You can't just make like Kellen Mond your starter, take him the third round. So in a weird way, they're just kind of throwing Goff to the wolves. Now, they would say, listen, he's paid $35 million. Like, Dan Campbell's not walking around probably telling his coaches, like, we're trying to lose. But I do think if you start really – like, they might just be really terrible. I just don't see the firepower, guy. Remember when they played the Niners in Levi's? It's like they had some players. They were explosive on offense. That's not this team.
Well, and even you remember the Eagles team that gave the Niners problems. They at least had a quarterback that you thought could just make a play and kill you, right? Carson Wentz
and
he did. And that's what Matthew Stafford is. That is not the case with this team. Their number 1 overall pick, Penei Sewell, clear that it's a work in progress with him at right tackle, right?
You remember the wide receiver that Wentz hit down the sideline?
Oh, it was a guy that no one knew who he was, right? But then it turned out
last name starts with an F.
Fulgham. Yeah.
Not on the Eagles anymore. He's on another team.
Can I daily fantasy him this week?
I think he kind of got like pushed out. Like he just wasn't good enough. That was like his high water mark. Remember, he was like an undrafted free agent. It was an incredible story. He had like a 3-week stretch where he had like 3 straight touchdowns. But I think that's maybe where his career peaked.
Yeah, I don't know. I saw an article from 3 weeks ago that he's on the bubble, so maybe they cut him. He could have his game, but I hope he's not on the roster next week when the Niners play him, from the Niners' perspective. But, okay, there's our lock of the week then. There really wasn't a lot of other consideration here. That Bucks line for Thursday night got big fast. We weren't going to do the Thursday night game. A couple other games that are intriguing. Well, let's dive in before we do. You want to do dud of the week, and then
I say we do dud of the week.
So you and I argued the other day about what's a worse football game What's a less interesting football game? The Giants game against the Broncos or the Jags game against the Texans? I said I think Jags-Texans is more interesting. You said you think Broncos-Giants is more interesting. While we disagree there, we both agree the dud of the week is Jags-Texans. Because that game is just I think it's about Trevor Lawrence that makes the game interesting, but that has the potential. I think that's a worse game. We agree on that. So that's the game we're betting on. Jags-Texans. This is the thing. Dud of the week. We find the worst game. We already spent some time identifying it this week. And that's it. That's the
to
game.
me the only question is I feel not good about betting either side. Tyrod Taylor's their quarterback. Do you remember week 1 last year before he got poked the second week?
Yeah.
They barely beat the Bengals.
Yeah.
And people were like, what's going on here? Because Anthony Lynn had been like, we're not going to play the rookie. This guy's going to play. And then he looked terrible. This team is way worse than that Charger team. It is obviously Trevor Lawrence. I think there's some question marks with their offensive line. Even if they have a good week, like if you score 21 points, throw 2 touchdowns, have another rushing touchdown, are the Texans scoring 10 points? Like, to me, the under almost feels too obvious. Maybe, like you said, mentioned before we jumped on, you bet the over, but it does feel like the under is the play. Because you could argue that the Giants-Denver game, which to me is a better version of the dud, whatever that over-under is in that game feels like an easier bet. Like there's going to be a lot of defense played in that game. Yeah. But that to me is like, this is the true shittiest. 2 shitty teams are terrible teams. I guess I would take the under because I wouldn't feel great betting +3 on the Texans.
Yeah,
I'm not comfortable with the Jags covering.
That to me is the deciding factor. Is this if we don't take the under, we have to take one of these teams.
Who would you take if you got to take one?
I would take the Texans +3.
I would too.
Because I just think they both stink.
Would you rather take the Texans +3 than the under?
See that? No, that's what I'm saying. It's like now you're going to make me choose one of these 2 teams.
Well, we got to. Well,
no, I know. That's where the under makes sense. The under makes sense in that I'm not hitching my wagon to either one of these 2. If you bet the under, we're saying we think they're both inept.
Yes, I do.
I do too.
I think the Jags could make some plays.
Yeah, I see. That's. But
are the Jags scoring like 28 points? Like think of what it takes to get to the over, like 28 to 23. I mean it takes some. Is that? I'm way over now, huh? It would take 23, 22.
Right.
Like that's a lot of points 21. In that type game.
Yeah. Yeah, under. Okay.
Could be some pick sixes and fumble sixes though. That could get us some points. But you can't account.
I mean, yeah. What are you going to do with that? This is the nature of.
So we're going Niners minus. You said it's 8 now.
It's 8. And again, we said we got to wait till Sunday to make sure something weird doesn't happen. But you could argue lock that one in because is there anything that could happen that?
I mean, Jimmy could fail a corona test.
So Sudfeld's the quarterback. I still might take the Niners to cover.
Would be a little more nerve-wracking.
Trey Lance has been throwing. Maybe it's Trey Lance.
The problem would be the problem would be is if Jimmy was out. I just think that number would come back to like 6.
That's true.
We'd just be able to get it at a better, value, time value money. So we'll go Niners, and we'll take the under.
Yeah, dud of the week. Dud of the week. We're taking the under on. What'd you say? What's 45.5?
45.5. Yeah.
Okay. Any other games that stand out to you that you like? We don't.
You could argue. You could argue we lock in the under because the only chance, like if one of those quarterbacks got knocked out, that number could come down.
It's a good call. Yeah. Okay, let's lock that number in. So 100 on that game, 200 on. Is that what we're deciding?
We're going 400 total, 200 each. We'll go 300 on the main game and 100 just to dabble on the dud, so we can keep an eye on it.
Yep. Nate says
I'm feeling like a
0-0
halftime. We'd be in great shape.
Fantastic. We're going to be the only people watching that game. People are going to wonder, like, why are these guys watching that game? So, okay, that's what we're doing. Any other games stand out to you? I'll tell you one I like. New England -3 against Miami. I know it's Mac Jones' debut. I don't love that Tua, not the rookie, was not named a captain of the Miami Dolphins. I don't love that they've been spending a lot of time trying to replace their quarterback. I do wonder if people are a little high on Miami given last year, that maybe they a step back candidate this year. I think they might be. So their quarterback, their coach against Mac Jones is scary, but Bill against Tua is scary. So I like I like the Patriots -3 against Miami. There's one.
I
for
love
me.
it. I mean, to me, that feels like a lock. I mean, if I was big bankroll, like if I was in Vegas this weekend, I would probably take a decent amount of money out of the old savings account and maybe plop that on that game. The game I really like, Vikings at the Bengals. I mean, I just think the Bengals
Is that one
really
6.5?
I saw -3.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that to me, if I wrote it down wrong, because -3 feels like
-3.
I mean, the Vikings are just good. I mean, they have really good players. I don't know if you saw the report. Now, Jamar wasn't happy with it. That said that, he's not used to the non-white laces and not being able to see. Like, there's just a lot of weird stuff going on with the Bengals. I'm not saying the Vikings, they could have a bounce back, but they're just way more talented than the Bengals. They should win that game by a touchdown.
I'd be a little alarmed at this point. I'm a little alarmed. You know what I thought when I read that story about Jamar Chase? I felt sad. Like, I hope that's not the way this goes, is that we spend a year talking about Jamar Chase can't catch. That would be sad. Now, maybe he's just rusty. He said, maybe I'm just rusty, took a year off. I hope that's not. If he's great, if he's not, whatever. I just hope it's not like that. We don't have like some guy with the yips like that.
Well, I'd even say him and Sewell, if they were to have bad rookie seasons, most people view these guys as really good players, like two of the top 5 players in the draft. If you remove the quarterbacks, I would imagine most draft rooms thought those two guys were ballers. And now it feels like one guy's already got the yips. The other guy can't block. I mean, it's like, holy, like you said, there are no such thing as floors just because shit is hard. Jamar Chase, I know he took a year off, but can't catch.
And you got another game? Oh, you just said a game. Sorry. I'll go. Here's another one I like. Jets +4.5 at Carolina.
See, I think I'd go Panthers.
Okay.
Zach Wilson named captain.
Zach Wilson named a captain. That's a pretty good sign. Carolina.
I don't know. They could be the sleeper team this year of just competing to get a wild card. Okay. I could see that.
Okay.
I could see that.
So are you going to say you like the Eagles +3?
I like the Eagles plus. Yeah, whatever the point is. If they're getting 3.5, love them. I mean, I think the Falcons are going to be pretty bad.
I've got them at 3 right now, Philly.
I got them at 3 too. I was driving around though. I don't know if Tony Gonzalez worked out with Kyle Pitts. But I was in the car yesterday and I was flipping Sirius channels and I came upon NFL radio and I saw his name, like Tony Gonzalez. I'm like, I'll listen to whatever he's talking about. He was talking about Pitts and he loves him. And he was just saying that, like, obviously he had played with Matty Ice and he's like, Matt is so good with the tight end and like what he did for my career. And this guy is infinite. He's just bigger and faster than Tony was. And he was just, that could be a tough matchup. But it's like, it's a lot to ask of a rookie. The Eagles do not have great linebackers or safety play. Like, who's covering Kyle Pitts on the Eagles? But it's like Kyle Pitts' first game. I always wondered this with rookies. Devontae Smith and Kyle Pitts are two good examples, right? They're both in this game. One guy was the 11th pick or 10th pick. The other guy was the 4th pick. They were elite college players, like two pound for pound the best players, especially Devontae because he weighs like 110 pounds. Are some of the rookies just going to come out and just have 100 yards and a touchdown? I don't know.
Well, I mean, if you're Arthur Smith and you're Matt Ryan, if you can't come out with a week 1 game plan that gets Kyle Pitts going, there's a problem.
Yeah. Do you like Atlanta?
I don't like Atlanta.
Me either. I think it's going to be.
And you've been on Philly as being a little underrated. How about Green Bay -4.5 against the Saints? That game's being played in Jacksonville. That game got moved to Jacksonville. I think Aaron Rodgers.
Would you consider that a neutral site, or is that just kind of a desperation site?
Well, it's both.
Benefits. One team's used to playing. Now, Drew, I guess, is a little different. I mean, Jameis. I mean, they're a dome team.
Well, they're a home field advantage team is what they are.
Big time.
We saw last year when they went there, one of the famous moments of 2020 in the NFL season was Aaron Rodgers getting the defensive line of the Saints to jump offsides in the red zone.
That's going to be a weird crowd. That'd just be like if you just live in the area, you're like, I'll go see the Aaron Rodgers.
Well, if you're a Jags fan, you're like, there's NFL football? Yeah. All right.
That's a bizarre crowd.
What do you think of that game? Aaron coming back with a vengeance, -4.5?
I don't have a great.
To me, that game is about Jameis.
Yeah, I don't have a great feel for the Saints. Like, is Jameis going to be good? Because every so often, a star coach resurrects a player at quarterback, right? We see it every 5-10 years. A guy that it happened with Alex Smith. It happened once a time with Rich Gannon. Now, Alex was never good. Rich was never good. Jameis was never good. right? He's never been a Pro Bowl player. His best year was a year where he also threw 31 picks. So when I say resurrect, I just meant a guy that was drafted high. It happened with Steve Young. Now, a lot of guys, it never happens.
Right.
I would not count Jameis Winston out as someone who just to resurrect, you don't need to be Rich Gannon to win the MVP. Alex Smith was fantastic, right? And a lot of people would argue he was never even like a top 8 quarterback. He really was more like 9 to 15. If they get that out of Jameis for like that 5 years, he will never cost as much as some of these other guys. They'd be in pretty good shape, right?
Yes. I'm not sure that's what's going to happen.
Well, I don't know either.
I'd say to me it's less likely that happens.
Fun story though, if it does happen.
Be great.
Because I do think he's kind of a fun. People are just kind of. He's like a magnet. People have an opinion, good or bad.
He's entertaining.
I think one of the best games of the day though is Colts Seattle.
Who do you like? Seattle?
3-point
spread?
I think betting week 1, unless you're going to do what we do for the lock of the week, is very, very difficult when it gets like 2 good teams or 2 bad teams. You really don't know. Like Carson Wentz guy, 16 touchdowns, 15 picks last season. He was horrendous. Now, I think both you and a lot of people think that he can get it going again, but sometimes guys don't. I don't know. But Colts, they can run the ball. They play defense. They're a physical team. Seattle's has definitely been the last couple of years a little softer version of what they were before. I don't know. I mean,
I like Seattle.
You talked Seattle -3 on the road?
I don't feel great about it because this is the game they play in, is they win this game by 3.
They win this game. I agree.
By 3.
They win
with a field goal.
Like a game against the Jets by 1 at home.
Yeah.
But on the road, this is the type of game they usually win. There are to me, the Colts, though, pretty physical team. That's the thing. Like, they're a physical team.
I'll give you one more. Christopher on YouTube says the locks, the Ravens, the Chargers, the Vikings. We'll get to the Ravens later in the show because it's a mess for them. The Chargers game, for all the expectations, and I think the Chargers are going to deliver this year on expectations. I think they're a pick'em at last I checked at football team. Oh, now it's football team -1. What's going on there? Because to me,
10 a.m. kickoff.
That feels like
defense.
that feels like a football team win to me, John.
I would bet on the football team. Do you like Coach Game 1? Coach Game 1. He's been a coordinator for 1 year. His first game, 3-hour time difference, West Coast to East Coast, against a football team that I would say 3 years ago, I would like the Chargers. This football team's got like some juju and Rivera. Wasn't funny.
Just talking about them like this football team, but it's also their name.
I know.
It's like this John over here, this John Middlecoff.
Did you see they found like they whittled it down to like 4 to 5 names?
What are they doing? Like, guys, make it a game. Call it The Bachelor. Do it every Thursday night on local TV, and name your team before the season starts. What are you doing?
But the football team's still alive. You see, they're on the list.
Yeah, well, I would name a football team. But what are you letting this drag into the season for? Like, this should have been off-season footballteam.com content.
Presidents is the worst one that I saw. You cannot name them.
They're all bad. They're all bad. That's the thing.
There was one that wasn't bad, like the Red Hogs actually wasn't.
Oh, yeah,
terrible.
Red Hogs is the one I like. I like Red Hogs, or just Hogs. They could have the same logo as Ham. Hogs. If they don't take Red Hogs, we should use whatever logo they had for our new Ham logo.
You want to just email Dan Snyder, see if we can just have it?
Yeah. Or they do Red Hogs and then we sue them. Like, nope, we're Ham first. We're pigs.
Well, no, it's just didn't Mark Davis do that with the renderings? He just copy and pasted it and then uses it for his. Didn't he do something like that? Wasn't that with the Vegas Stadium? The same thing as I guess he owned that.
That's right. That's right.
Too.
It was because they had already spent the money on I saw Jeff Schwartz tweeted the uniforms that Oregon's wearing this weekend, pretty sweet. And somebody replied to the Oregon, like when they announced their logo, was like, that's cool, but North Texas already did it. And it's like, nah, I'm pretty sure whatever North Texas is doing, they took from Oregon. I don't think North Texas did it first.
What's the color they using this week?
It's all yellow? White, but like bright green with like green wings, and looks pretty sick.
Yeah. Well, you better play well.
Yep. Anything? Yeah, I think those are the games. I don't know what to do. Cleveland's getting 6. That could turn out to look like value, but are you really betting against Kansas City week 1?
At home, too.
In KC.
That's probably the best game of the day, don't you think?
Yeah, yes.
On paper.
On paper, yeah. Our Thursday night, Sunday night games could both be, as we record this before Thursday night, I'm not expecting a ton, but. All right, so that's good. That's our lock of the week. our dud of the week. Oh, somebody told us not that we are not recommending this, but I think Michael said if you were to do the Tito parlay, as he calls it, not sure the Tito's has approved that one, but that's plus 160. Is what would we get if we did? What would it be if you did Niners minus 8.5, and where's my Jags?
Listen, I'm pro gambling, and
Under.
I've played, I would say, 100 parlays in the last 5 years. I've won 2 of them. There's a reason the odds are incredible, because they take money. I'm not the biggest Darren Ravel guy. I saw him tweet something out a while back that books, salivate over parlays from people. 2-team parlay is a little more doable, but most people don't do 2-team parlays, because you're always like, well, why don't I just add 2 more and I get it from 2-1 to 8-1?
It happened to me last year when I was doing soccer, which I'd never watched before in my life. And I was doing, an under, a Fulham, Brighton, Crest under, and a Man U. I don't even know what I was doing. And you're just chasing. At that point, you're just chasing.
Yeah.
I was just chasing. All right, that's good. Okay, coming up later in the podcast, a conversation with Joe Staley, which was great. Joe's going to be part of the NBC Sports Bay Area 49ers coverage this year on the pre and the post-game show. One of the things he said to us, which you'll hear later, is that he thinks this Niners team is more talented than the 2019 team that went to the Super Bowl. Did that comment surprise you?
A little bit, yeah. Now, the difference, though, is there was a lot of unknown coming into that year. They had been bad the previous 2 seasons, right? They hadn't won. So when they started 8-0, it was a really big story because it somewhat came out of nowhere. Now, I did think people thought by that point in time they had just gotten Bosa. They had drafted Deebo Samuel. Jimmy was coming back off the ACL. People thought they could be competitive. And when we say competitive, compete for like a wild card spot. I don't think most people, including ourselves, I would say anyone, diehard Niner fan, was picking them to be the number 1 seed, 13-3. It was a pretty powerful year, right?
Yep.
It wasn't completely out of nowhere. Like, it wouldn't be the equivalent of like the Lions making the playoffs or something, but the way in which they played was pretty nuts. So I understand it, because this team is much more established. We've seen a lot of guys from that team play well. Like we have evidence when Bosa's healthy how good he is. They've add Trent Williams. They had several drafts since then. Fred Warner and Kittle have really, really established themselves as elite players. So I get it. I think it actually makes more sense when I hear him say it. Now, once I saw that team play, I have a hard time. Like, I'll be very surprised if like we're in December and that team is like even if the record's not quite as good, if they're as consistently as badass, that team every fucking week was just bringing it.
Right.
Guy, in their losses, remember the loss on Monday Night Football to Seattle? That thing was a war zone.
With overtime.
It's like, yeah, so for 17 weeks, they were just a heavyweight fighter.
How about the Ravens game was one of the most, that game was.
Oh, my God.
And then that
Saints,
stretch, they kicked the Packers' ass. They came back and lost to the Ravens in the mud. Then they went out and beat the Saints in an incredible, one of the best games ever. Then they came back and they lost to the Falcons, right? And then it's like, well, God, now they got the Rams and the Seahawks. How are they going to pull this off? They just gave it all away.
Did get walked off by Julio.
Got walked off by Julio, and it felt like they had just let it slip away because they got the Rams and the Seahawks. Are you really going to win both those games? And then they came back and won both those games by a combined 8 points or something like that.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this, specifically to the point that Staley made on the show. To me, the linchpin of the whole thing, because I think we could go position by position and go, yep, this receiver group could be better than that receiver group that added Emmanuel Sanders like halfway through the season.
Because who they really have to start the season, like Debo.
They had
Bourne.
Debo, right. I think, from a corner standpoint, they did have Richard, and we talked about corner depth here. But if Verrett's healthy all year, we'll see what they get from the rest. Were they great at corner? No, they were switching guys in and out in the Super Bowl. The linchpin of the whole thing is Kinlaw. Like, that's like, if we're going to say this team is more talented in the end than the 19 team, Kinlaw doesn't have to be as good as Armstead, But he's just got to be good enough that because the defensive line was so dominant that year.
You see. Well, I haven't seen the practice report yet. On Wednesday, he was a DNP knee.
Whereas
You're
Armstead
right.
was one of the most impactful players in the NFL that year.
But Kinlaw's not replacing Armstead. He's replacing Buckner. And Buckner.
Sorry,
was
I didn't mean
their best
Armstead.
player.
I meant Buckner. Buckner.
So it's like that already is an L. Like I think it's fair to say it would be one of the greatest upsets in American athletic history if Kinlaw becomes a better player than Buckner. Everyone would agree, probably beside Kinlaw's family might still argue that. Like even a diehard #faithful type person. But can he just be like a really good player? Just someone where you feel like, this guy's a better player. I don't know how he's going to look tonight, but clearly Vita Vea. I'm saying his name right?
Yeah, Vita Vea.
Remember last year he shattered his leg. But those first couple years, people were like, did they overdraft him? And then by last year, once he got with Bowles, you're like, God damn, this guy's an ass kicker. And he just kind of had found his niche. Can this guy... See, I think you even question, like, when he's on the field, is he that impactful? I'm even like, I'll take a step back. Can I just count on this guy for 35 snaps a game? Like, I would say right now, my answer would be hell no. Right? He's just not a dependable player. Like, that's the one thing I'll give Armstead a lot of credit. Armstead really, and I would have bet against this 3 or 4 years ago, Armstead is very dependable. Like, I don't know how good he's going to be on a weekly basis, but I feel very confident 91's going to be there. Right? He's just going to show up. Now, I think you want more because he looks so big. Now, he doesn't look big. He is massive, but he plays. And I know that if he's got enough talent around him, Armstead's fine. Armstead would start for every team in the league. Like, can we get to a point by midseason like, oh, Kinlaw's the type guy that every team in the league would want? Like, right now, he's a pretty big question mark. But I'd say is he their biggest question mark right now?
Yeah.
Besides, obviously quarterback play.
Yeah, besides quarterback play and health,
They drafted him 14th.
Everything else. But the deal was never he has to be better than Buckner. That was never the deal that we all made.
No, it was a
right?
money move and a big.
And it was IU. You add somebody else, and okay. But to me, if this team's going to look like they're more talented, I think they can definitely be more talented at receiver with Ayuk. Kittle is Kittle, right? At offensive line, they got, ironically, as you brought up to Joe, we talked to him, Trent Williams over Joe Staley, which is kind of crazy. You wish you had both
Mac.
those guys. You add Mac. The running backs, Mostert, Sermon, I think from a talent standpoint, Hasty. Breida was really good. Juszczyk is Juszczyk. Defensively, it's pretty similar. Fred Warner, you'd have to argue, is probably better than he was then.
He's better now, yeah.
So I don't think it's that crazy. I think Joe's onto something, but it's going to be hard to say it if the defensive line isn't more productive than it was that year.
Would you rather take a pick when you draft high and just go, we just whiffed? An A.J. Jenkins, just the guy is not good enough. Or would you rather have one where it's like, a Reuben Foster, whatever, off the field issues, a Kinlaw, let's just say he just always is battling injuries, but you go, God, the talent was there. We just couldn't keep him on the field.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, you could argue it's irrelevant.
I think that the difference would be with A.J. Jenkins, you probably cut bait faster.
He's also like 29th pick or whatever it was, right? It was at the end of the round.
Yeah,
there is a difference
for example,
between pick 28 and pick 14. There
Solomon Thomas at least played for the 49ers, right? A.J. Jenkins didn't bring him anything.
Yeah, I think Cleveland Farrell and Solomon Thomas are two examples of clearly those guys should not have been picked 3rd and 4th, but for however many years they played a ton of snaps for you every game, right? Until obviously Solomon snapped his leg or whatever. But those guys are they're not good what you would want out of the position, but they're NFL players. You can play with them.
Yeah.
Kinlaw, what would you put his over/under on starts this year? Double digits?
If you told me right now they play 17 games, he starts 14, we would obviously both take that. What's the number you would roll the dice?
Do you feel confident he gets to 10?
10.
10, you're getting close to half the season.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think they would sign up for that. Unless
you would not take 10 right now. You would take
right
14, but you would not take 10, I don't think. You'd try to get more.
You would not take 10.
10's.
Because 10, well, if he doesn't start 10, that means he's missing, right?
Yeah, now.
He's out.
Here, if I was going to play counterpoint, I'd be like, all right, guy, great take. Kinlaw is the linchpin, whatever. If Bosa plays 16 or 17 games, you are pretty deep on the defensive line. Like that was they didn't want to cut anybody. We went to practices. We saw these guys. Like they do have good players.
But the way they made the Super Bowl was they had by far
Agreed.
those 4 guys beat the shit out of everybody.
I know, but if I told you
Bosa,
right now,
Bosa obviously I am chalking up Bosa for a lot. But go back to like Khalil Mack with the Raiders. Let's say Bosa does like something like that where he's just like one of the best players in the league. To be a great unit and just a great defense, you do need those other guys to kind of fucking be part of it.
Agreed.
And Armstead is very dependent on other humans.
Yeah. But if I told you right now, you get 16 games out of Bosa, can they be a top 8 defense? I think you'd say yes. I think they're deep enough on the D-line. If you got that from Bosa, you feel good about Armstead, that's enough. So
I agree.
So Joe, I mean, he was around it. Like, he's seen it. This is Joe Staley we're talking about here.
Buckner is one of the more dependable players like the last decade.
Buckner, yeah.
But DeForest, yeah.
Yeah. So
it just does show you, I think that 2 good examples, right? I mean, obviously they would have done the equivalent. Like if they could have got rid of Buckner for Trent Williams, the equivalent of defensive tackle, they would have. Like it's not always that easy. They needed the money. It was just a complicated situation, and they made a tough decision. That's part of the business. Belichick's been doing it for years. You're not always going to be right. When you do the plug and play guy, when I get rid of someone to go sign, Stephon Diggs available or whatever, you just know what you're getting. There is much more unknown, and we're seeing it right now with Kinlaw, and he's going to be a fascinating guy to watch when you do it for a draft pick. Because the moment the trade's made, you're like, it sucked, but I would say most Niner fans are like, damn, we just got pick 13. Because remember, they traded, but they got 13 right off the bat. It's like, okay, I didn't want to trade DeForest Buckner, but at least they got a boatload back. But then ultimately, you got to turn that into, and they did. Like they got Ayuk was part of that ultimately with that trade back. But man, that Kinlaw, it'd be one thing if he was a corner or a wide receiver. I mean, he is a defensive lineman, right? He should be one of their core guys. I just don't even know. Like, I know he's talented, but the knee thing, man, huge guys, sometimes that stuff doesn't go away.
No. Nate on YouTube says, so if Ayuk misses a lot of time this year, some of you will say he's a bust too? No. I mean, clearly Brandon Ayuk has the talent to be a really good NFL player. Right now, availability, we just got to get, I don't want to go 4 weeks and then 1 week with a groin and then 6 weeks and then 1 week with something else, a hammy. So that's going to be a part of his story. But I think there is a question right now. If Kinlaw is healthy for 17 games, is he an elite first-round level producer? Ayuk clearly is that. Like, there's no question about that.
Yeah, I agree.
Bust is not on the table from a production standpoint for Ayuk.
No. Well, he was already productive as a rookie.
Yeah, I mean, he's
with bad quarterbacks.
So, all right, John. Before we go any further, let's tell the people about DraftKings. Our DraftKings game is full. You got left out. Here's the solution. Get in our DraftKings league, which is linked in the YouTube and in the podcast. Join the league. That way you are the first to get the invite to our game next week when we set it up again. It's 200 people in this game. That's as big as we can make the game. Maybe we can make bigger ones. I don't know. But promo code HAM. Sign up right now. Get yourself ready. Life's all about preparing. Get yourself ready for week 2 right now. Sign up with code HAM. Here's the other thing. You don't have to be in our game. Sign up with code HAM and get in a bunch of DraftKings games. You don't even have to. If you're stuck with Gus Edwards, somebody is stuck with Gus Edwards, and now go play daily fantasy. That's the lesson here.
You know what? I might have set my lineup last night when I was just kind of laying in bed before I went to bed. I'm like, I'm just going to put together a phantom lineup, because what you do is you get $50,000 and different guys are, have different amounts next to them, and you got to fit in your lineup under the salary cap. Kind of like, I guess Gus wouldn't have been in our game because we're only doing Sunday only. But if you want to do that, you never get stuck. DFS is the only way to go. Download the DraftKings app, promo code HAM. I can't recommend enough. We've been loyal DFS players. I mean, you're talking about 2 guys that never played fantasy our entire life up until like 2 years ago.
Straight
and
haters.
Now, if I'm in the mix, it's fun. I am a believer.
Yep. DraftKings, promo code HAM. Sign up right now. Get in a game this weekend. If you want to play a $2 game, it exists. You want to play a $100 game, it exists. And also get in the Haberman and Middlecoff League. We'll be playing every week at DraftKings, promo code HAM when you sign up. Also, podcast brought to you by Manscaped. Kickoff.com, promo code HAM for 20% off and free shipping. As someone DM me on Instagram, you guys, I send you photos of my Titos. Should I send you photos of me using my Lawnmower 4.0?
No, you should not. Send those to your
no, definitely not. No.
Send those to your wife or girlfriend, because here's what the Lawnmower 4.0 is for. It's for the male pubic region. And we all know that sometimes it gets bushy down there. You know, it needs to be cleaned up, and you need to trim the cojones. Well, here's the thing about the 4.0. And I could speak for the 3.0 and the 2.0. They were safe. I never had to worry about nicks and cuts. I've never been cut from using any Manscaped product. It really, as someone who's been trimming now for probably 15 plus years, it is easily the best. Yeah, I mean, I started getting it probably first couple years, just let it grow. You know, so proud to have something down there. And then you realize, you know, you got to keep that thing trim. And that's where the Lawnmower 4.0 comes in. But free shipping, promo code HAM. They also have the nose trimmer. So if you got some, some hair sticking out, you put that bad boy in there and you cut it, because you don't want to be tweezing, right, guy? Because that gives you
tweezing. You don't want to be. You get scissors up in there, and now you're.
Oh,
that's dangerous. That's dangerous. You're one little slip away from a nose ring. So.
Yeah, you don't want to be doing that. I could see you with a nose ring.
You think?
Would you do the Zeke Elliott?
Diamond? Yeah. If you bought me a $15,000 diamond, I'd put it in my nostril.
I probably would too, actually. And then a week later, I'd sell it.
Yeah. All right. Good in it.
Manscaped.
Joe Staley. So the Oregon-Ohio State game, John. That's what we're going to talk about next, right?
Yeah.
Oregon-Ohio State is this weekend. And something hit me that I was thinking about. It's a 9 a.m. game.
Body clock,
Pacific. Big noon kickoff in Columbus. And I was thinking about, because this game was supposed to happen last year, the Michigan-Washington game was also supposed to happen last year. Remember, there was a time last year where you were thinking, like, maybe I'll go to one game and then the next week go to the other, or they were on the same weekend, whatever it was. Pac-12 schools were hosting both. We've been talking about this game longer than most people spend planning a wedding. So it's our day. It's finally here Saturday. Like, if you've been talking about Oregon-Ohio State, like I have and like you have, we've been talking about this game a long time, because it was supposed to. They were each supposed to get played last year on the other team's sites. Washington and Oregon were supposed to host this game, and Oregon-Ohio State still feels big. Washington-Michigan feels like the big day is almost here. But like on Wednesday, everyone kind of heard that the groom almost called it off, but now he's still going to be in it. And they're still going to have the wedding, but it's not quite the same. It feels a little weird because Washington lost to Montana week 1. Doesn't quite have the same build-up. It's not quite what we hoped it was going to be.
Bobby Hauck
and Montana. But Oregon, Ohio State, this is the game that we've been talking about for a long time. And Kayvon Thibodeau, if you're going to be maybe the number 1 pick, then this is the kind of game you solidify that. The problem is that he's not going to be 100% if he plays. I expect him to play. I don't know if he'll only line up on the right side, so he's not pushing off the left foot, just thinking about ankles.
It's hard in college football. There's no injury report or anything, so they can be pretty mum on it.
Yeah, although Cristobal is pretty transparent. He said, like, we're trying to figure out what he can do this week. I'll tell you as much as I can without, as I protect my own team. But
so it turned out to be better than it looked when he had the boot on, right?
X-ray negative. I expect him to play. That's just me. I got to think he's going to try and give it a go. I think he's a guy that wants to compete. The program is built on it. This is Ohio State they're playing. So I got to think, John, he's going to be on the field unless the doctors think he could cause further injury to his ankle, which it doesn't seem like that's.
Was it an ankle sprain? Is that what they're calling it?
Yeah, he got rolled up kind of on the side. I'm not sure what they're officially calling it, but yeah.
Yeah.
So, but look, Oregon has really talented players in this game. Their linebacker who led them in tackles last week, a guy named Justin Flo, the second highest recruit they've ever gotten at Oregon. Thibodeau was number 1. Justin Flo was number 2.
In the history of the program?
In the history of the program. 2 defense linebacker.
Wasn't Noah Sewell like a
Noah Sewell, Panay's younger brother, number 1, 250 pounds. I talked to Bruce Feldman. He thinks in some ways Noah's
How many fucking linebackers these guys have?
He thinks in some ways he's more talented than Kayvon. Some people think that Noah Sewell is actually more talented than Kayvon Thibodeau in some ways. So they should. I mean, now they got to a defense here. They're going up against this Ohio State team that you're going to have to be scoring like 30 points to beat them, 28 to beat them.
You see those wide receivers against Minnesota? They can fly, bro.
Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. Yeah.
They can fly. I think it's a big moment just for just the West Coast football. Not the Mountain West and the Big Sky who are actually doing well, but just the Pac-12. If these guys can just stay close, they don't even need to win. Just stay close. Like, to me, Montana, Washington, I actually think it's kind of a Harbaugh moment. Like, you might just kick the shit out of these guys. And it won't feel like you're back, but it'll be like
Washington.
Yeah, I'm saying Harbaugh just beats them by like 20, 25 points. And it's just like, Jim's just kind of got some mojo back. Are they going to be some national championship team? No, but like maybe he figured some things out. Maybe they're just better. Where this game, it feels like everyone's blowing Mario, and rightfully so, for landing all these sweet recruits. You listed the 3 guys. I get you just falling 24/7 or whatever. They have recruited incredibly well the last couple of years, right? It's not just the high end, like the number 1 overall guy, but just their classes. So I just question the quarterback they rolled out. Is that guy going to be able to hang at Ohio State? The guy that we just saw against Fresno State. I would lean no.
That's what this game's about. Because even with a good defense, you're going to have to score. Unless if you're creating turnovers, that's going to. I think Oregon. They did it last week. They forced 4 fumbles. They have got, I think, to create turnovers because their offense is not as explosive as Ohio State. So they got to take the ball away from them.
The other thing that really stood out to me, it was actually I didn't start drinking until this game ended, and it was just so locked in. It was remarkable. That Fresno State Oregon, I'm made for that 3-hour stretch. Like I'm put on this earth to consume that thing on a couch. The Dogs, I would say. Now, the Pac-12 the last couple of years is not known to have great defensive lines, right? Probably like Oregon does right now, or like Chip did once upon a time with Buckner and Armstead. The Dogs were shoving around their offensive line, constantly getting pressure. I don't pretend to know every dude on Ohio State's front, but I know they got dudes.
Yeah.
Are they going to be able to block them? Now, Mario's an O-line guy, but like the Dogs guy were constantly in the backfield. The Fresno State against Oregon. That to me is a little concerning. Beside even the quarterback.
I think part of it is just that you got to scare them with the pass to relieve some of that pressure. You've got to hit some throws to relieve some pressure.
He missed. I remember one like kind of a deep crossing, like a skinny post type that the guy would have just been off to the races, and the dude laid out Giancarlo Stanton style the other night. You see that catch by Stanton? Mm-hmm. Pretty nice catch in the outfield. He dove. Might not even have been as crazy, but when you're 6'8" and you dive, it just feels like you're covering a lot of ground. The whole place went nuts. But do you remember the pass the Oregon guy made? And he had him cutting across the middle, and the dude and it's just like, oh my God, you can't hit that throw. Maybe it's his first game. I heard a lot of people defending Chris Stroud, and rightfully so, because that first half.
Is his name Chris?
No, it's CJ. Chris, I think, was another athlete somewhere once upon a time. CJ Stroud. That some of these guys, especially when you start for the Ohio States, Clemson's, Bama, like not everyone just hits the ground running and looks like bright. Like sometimes you have a rough half. It's the first game the guy's ever started. By the second half, I was like, God, this guy's pretty good. Yeah, he'll probably be fine. More than likely, he's a good player.
Oh, you liked his 5 completions for 236 yards and 4 touchdowns in the second half?
Now, some of them were layup throws. The guy was wide open. But he did make a couple. He's an athletic guy. They're going to get layup throws in college.
Yeah, with these guys. People think this is maybe the greatest combo of Ohio State receivers ever. They've had
2
great
first-rounders.
Yeah, so
scary. Do you think Oregon keeps it close?
I do think they can, but they've got to create turnovers. I don't think Ohio State.
No, they can. Do you trust that they do? It's hard to say.
I think they do. I think they do.
That place is going to be going apeshit.
I know.
That place is going to be bananas.
It's going to be like 100,000. It's going to be 100,000 people.
I think Ohio State and Michigan are going to look awesome.
I think one thing, as crazy as it sounds, it's a disadvantage to be playing 9 a.m. body clock. You know who hates noon kickoff games? Like the fans. No. Fans who attend the games don't love them.
I think they're used to it in that part of the country, though, don't you?
No, because they still got like 5,000 tickets available, which is not a lot. Like they got 100,000 people there. But normally, like these things are like those. If this game was at night, I think it would have been sold out a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's going to be any noticeable difference. It's going to feel like a huge game.
Did they sing Mr. Brightside when you went to University of Michigan game?
I never. Where did that come from? I saw that the other day. I don't remember that at all. I don't. Do you even understand the tradition?
No, absolutely not. But it looked really cool on the video.
I love the part of the song where I even know, like, I don't quite know the words.
Yeah.
And then you can tell the whole stadium, people just kind of mumbling. Yeah, Mr. Brightside.
I do wonder if they put the lyrics on the video board.
Yeah, they probably do.
That would be my move. But I that has to be something they got instituted the last couple of years.
But how? Why? Does somebody know?
It did sound pretty cool when everyone's singing it.
Yeah, you get
and I
100,000
was thinking,
people
like,
singing.
I saw a lot of people replying, how did they get 100,000 people to learn the words? When you have 100,000 people, you only need probably 40 of them to be really loud for it to, like, echo through the whole town, right? 40,000 people singing at the same time would be a lot.
It was a big
I mean, it's
song.
not 100,000 people. Not every grandma in the stands is singing word for word.
Right. But, I mean,
There might be a FOMO aspect, though. If everyone's singing and you see the video, you're like, I'll sing too.
if you're a season ticket holder, you know the song by halfway through the season. So if they've been going 3-4 years, you've heard the song a million times.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, okay.
You want to dive into Fresno State Cal Poly, or
Is there a line on that?
Cal Poly
game?
just coming off a win against University of San Diego?
Are they
I don't
still
think
running
put
the
line
veer?
on that. It's a great question. I don't know.
Hard to
I hope
prepare
not.
for. I mean, you do not want
It
to
is-
play
it is hard to
Navy,
prepare for.
Air
No, you
Force. I mean, it's not the veer, but you know what I'm saying. Chop blocks. You
Basically
can't really
is.
practice
Yeah.
those.
James Noble used to run for a K when I was there. every
James
year.
Noble, Cal Poly, that was the guy.
Yeah, he was a running back. He was good.
Ramses Barden, wasn't that your receiver?
Yeah, James Noble made like Robbie Rouse or Deion Lewis look like Earl Campbell. He was probably 5'2", but he was a dominant player. I mean, legitimately like 5'6". I guess Robbie was 5'6" too, but Robbie was a better player.
All right, everybody. So here's the deal. We're going to go watch some football. Coming up tonight at 8 p.m. Pacific, Joe Staley, a conversation with Joe Staley will debut on our YouTube channel. This is Thursday night at 8. You can check that out. Please watch that. And it'll also, if you miss it, it'll be in the podcast. This is the podcast for Friday. Joe Staley's conversation will be in the podcast for Friday as well.
Let's do it.
All right, y'all. Thanks for hanging with us.
Adios.